For these percentage problems, it's really going to come down to breaking down what parts of the formula they gave you and where you fit those into the formula. Beyond that, it's really just making sure you have a calculator at the ready and know how to plug things into that calculator. I'm going to be using this calculator because as we get into calculus and higher level maths that I teach, you need something like this. You absolutely don't need something like this until then. If you're headed for college algebra, you can definitely get by with a TI-30 calculator that you can get for like 10, 12 bucks at Walmart or Amazon. Really, you won't need this for a number of years, but please don't be afraid by me using it. It's what I have handy, it's what I like to use. That said, what we're going to be doing for all these problems is breaking down the percent formula. Percent, I always like to say, is from the French, per of 100. Really what a percent does, it breaks it down out of 100, what do you have? So when this says 10% of 50 people, what it's really telling me is some number out of 50 people equals 0.10. So I did a couple things there. I said of 50 meant that 50 goes on the bottom of my fraction. I said that 10% really is a decimal, should be 0.10. What I'm doing to change percent from a decimal is I'm moving 2 places. The other way that you could see it is it's really taking the percent that you're given and dividing it by 100. Per 100 of 100 per, it's again, exactly means what it says in French. It's out of 100 when we talk about a percent. So you could do this by cross multiplication, you could do this a number of ways. Really the easiest way to see it is to get x alone. I'm going to be multiplying both sides by 50. So ideally in your calculator what you would really be putting in is 0.10 times 50. If I put that into my calculator should give me an answer of 5, which is the correct answer to the question. But since it's given me it in people, I want to keep that units and say 5 people as my final answer. 4% of 300 mice. So something out of 300 equals 4 out of 100. Again, the way that I'm going to solve it is x equals, if I put into my calculator 4 divided by 100, I get 0.04. This is something a lot of students get confused. They want to call this 0.4 instead of 0.04. Again, if you divide by 100, that'll always get you to the right decimal for these. So I really want to do 0.04 times 300. If I put that in my calculator, 0.04 times 300, my calculator should tell me the correct answer of 12. 12 what? 12 mice. 0.2% of 24 hours. This one's tricky because it's smaller than a percent. It's 1/10 of a percent, or 2/10 of a percent in this case. So it's not 0.02, it's not 0.2, it's 0.002. Again, the best way to do this is to set it up as whatever the percent is, in this case 0.2, divide by 100. If you do it that way, you'll always get to the right decimal. So in order to get x alone, I'm going to multiply both sides by 24. That's going to leave me with x equals, in my calculator, 0.002 times 24, which gives me 0.048 hours. Finally, in this section, we have 175% of 400 calories. X over 400 equals 175 over 100. In other words, when I multiply both sides by 400, x becomes 1.75 times 400. When I put that in my calculator, 1.75 times 400, it gives me an answer of 700 calories. Next few problems are a little different because they're asking me to find the whole after I've been given the part. So this says 30 dogs is 6% of what number of dogs? Instead of doing something over 30, 30 is the part of an unknown whole. So it becomes 30 over x equals 6 over 100. Really, it means that 30 over x equals 0.06. The best way to get x alone is to multiply both sides by x and divide both sides by 0.06. So I'm really switching where these two are. If I do that, it becomes 30 over 0.06 equals x. When I put it in my calculator, 30 divided by 0.06 gives me 500. So x equals 500 dogs. Same setup here. 115 over x equals 20 over 100, which means 115 over x equals 0.2, which means x equals 115 over 0.2. When I put it in my calculator, 115 divided by 0.2, it gives me 575 customers. For these last four problems, they're going to give me how many out of a total and ask me to create the percent. So basically, I'm going to be on the left-hand side of this equation. The only difference is, because the answer is going to be a decimal, if I want to report it as a percent, I'm going to actually have to multiply by this 100 that's implicitly being divided by. So the setup here, 88 bears is what percent of 530? We want to know what 88 is out of 530 to solve for x out of 100. But if we want to get x alone, we can do that by saying, well, let me multiply both sides by 100. So it becomes 88 divided by 530 times 100. When I put that into my calculator, 88 divided by 530 times 100, it gets me to 16.6%. I want to be careful here. It tells me to round to the nearest tenth. So I want to look at the number after the 10th digit. In this case, it's a 0. Because it's 4 or less, I can drop it and just keep that 6. If I'd gotten something that was 5 or more, I'd have to round up and change that 6 to a 7. Same setup for problem 8. The part, 280 songs out of the whole 970 songs times 100 is going to give us our answer. When I put that into my calculator, 280 divided by 970 times 100, my calculator gets me an answer of 28 point. In my calculator, it's 86. Since the 6 is the thing I'm dropping, it's 5 or larger. It means instead of becoming 28.8, it becomes 28.9%. So again, be careful with that rounding. It's saying here to round to the nearest tenth. Make sure that your number that you're dropping impacts whether you round this up or not. What percent of 3,000 butterflies is 430 butterflies? This is worded just slightly differently. Basically, we're flipping the subject and the predicate, but in the end, it's still part over whole. 430 over 3,000 times 100 to make it a percent. When I put it in my calculator, 430 divided by 3,000 times 100, I get 14.333 repeating, which is just 14.3%. Final question, what percent of 150 napkins is 32 napkins? So we're going to take the 32 out of 150. We're going to multiply it by 100. That's how I get 32 divided by 150 times 100, 21.3%.